I was here first, thank you.
You were.
Mm-hmm.
Except you weren't ready at all.
Nope. I was here at 12:00 with no green screen and my microphone disconnected.
So in order to play Elden Ring, I had to unplug my mic because I only have enough USB ports to to have one or the other. So I was ready at like 4:45, which would have been like 11:45 for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I was playing Elden Ring.
Smooth. It's really good though.
Yeah. I have no idea what the ending was. Like I have no clue what happened.
Have you not done the post game?
What do you mean the post game?
Go on YouTube and ask someone to tell you what the story's about.
Oh no, I finished it like 7 minutes ago. So
Oh well
I haven't
done.
had time.
We can watch it and we can comment on it.
Oh, it's so good.
Gamers Advocate reacts to somebody else's YouTube video.
Oh, literally all the big channels do. It's not the
Yeah,
worst
pretty much.
idea.
It's hot here in Texas. Today was like 75 degrees.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
It was below 0 Fahrenheit here 2 days ago.
Well, here it's exactly 50 Fahrenheit. Probably didn't need
Yeah,
to clarify it wasn't Celsius, but best to be sure.
That would be insanely warm.
Global warming's a myth.
Before we begin, the Gamers Advocate would like to remind you that any episode could contain game spoilers, so watch or listen with discretion. And now your hosts, AM Comnenos, Banana, and Legion. Enjoy the show.
Well, welcome on in to yet another episode of the Gamers Advocate podcast. We are joined, as always, AM Comnenos and Banana Hammock Republic. Yay! And myself, Legion. And today we're going to be going over spiritual successors. Kind of generally, and maybe games that we'd like to see and games that we have already maybe received that were possibly intentional or unintentional spiritual successors to other games. And one that came to my mind immediately was Roller Coaster Tycoon. And Roller Coaster Tycoon, of course, had its Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, but I think Planet Coaster is a far better fit of that actual description when we think of like a spiritual successor, like all the things that you could do in Roller Coaster Tycoon. It was just kind of like a sandbox. You could play it in the, just try to keep your park alive, this and that. I think it had, I'm trying to remember if it had like scenarios and stuff. I don't remember scenarios, but basically when you put things down, you could color the roller coasters, cars. You could just theme it a certain way. You could pop the little balloons and everything, but you could set the prices for your vendors, and it did make people sick because you had to keep the park clean. And a lot of those things are in Planet Coaster, just a lot more visually, probably aesthetic, and a little bit more control over the park and whatnot. So it took a lot of the things that were in Roller Coaster Tycoon and amped it up quite a bit. And now we have Planet Coaster 2, which I think does an exceptional job as well. It just takes it even a little bit further and a better engine. The original Planet Coaster, the struggle was that once you had enough theming going on, it struggled. Even on a really good PC, it really struggled. But the newer engine tends to work a little bit better. It has some issues here and there, but I think they're just, just bugs to get fixed here and there. They had a winter, now with the snow that comes down, it was not falling on the walkways and things, maybe on like the actual fixed rides. Everywhere else there was snow, but they kind of fixed that now, so it looks much more natural, and it gives a better look to it. Things like that. So I don't think it's necessarily buggy. I just think that there are some things that they see as obvious issues that they go on and later fix. But anyway, you guys have any off the top of your head?
I do. It's a game and it's a family of games that I would like to see. So I would really like to see a spiritual successor to the Typing of the Dead. I think there's a whole sort of series and family of games that we don't really see so much anymore. And I do like those on-rail shooters that we used to have. I think the Die Hard games. I can't remember if it was Die Hard 1, 2, or 3, but there was a multi-pack of Die Hard games that were all a bit different. One was an on-rail shooter. I used to love that. Typing of the Dead. And I'd like to see just this genre of game brought back, but specifically with those typing mechanics. Because I thought they were really cool. They were a bit inventive. They were different. I don't know how much you'd find it nowadays because basically everyone can type pretty well because we all grew up typing. So I don't know how well it would carry over today. Maybe you'd have to make it a lot more difficult. I'm not sure. But I would love to see the Typing of the Dead come back. And think the title's already there. Type Crisis. You don't even have to think. It's just there waiting to be made. So I want to see Spiritual Successors to specifically the Typing of the Dead, but also that family of games like Die Hard, like Time Crisis, like The House of the Dead.
Yeah, there's been a couple that are more recent. They're not very popular, but I think it's called Blood Typers. And there's
a good name, actually.
Yeah. There's another one where they give you like a set of letters or words, and you have to type out different options for it in the scenario. It's like an RPG. It's like a crypt crawler type thing. And if you face a certain thing, like a zombie or whatever, and it'll give a set of letters there, and you have to like type something of what action to take on it, and it's just open. Not quite in the same exact thing, but yeah. But there's one I think called Blood Typers. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's really cool. Cooperative gameplay, and I believe you type for more than just the shooting. So you also type sort of where you want to go, what you want to pick up off the ground. This looks great. Bookmarked.
There we go. Well, thank you for coming today. It's going to be...
Is that what this episode is going to be? I wish there was, before someone else jumps up with, well, actually. Yeah. Banana, save us.
Well, that's why I'm going to wish for a game that I know already exists. So for a long time, I was looking for the spiritual successor to the Space Quest and King's Quest games. Something that also captured the feel of Leisure Suit Larry, but without the specific topics that Leisure Suit Larry focused on. And not too long ago, I think sometime this year, in April, I think, Space Venture was finally released in early access, which is the two original writers or developers or essentially the people who were fundamentally responsible for making the Space Quest games, put together a Kickstarter, I think like 13 years ago. It got funded almost immediately, and then it got tied up in intellectual property hell for a long time. And now it is finally available, and I am hesitant to play it because it's in early access, and I want to wait for the full release of the game. But I'm very excited that it's moving forward because I loved those games.
I think it's really good that actually you're going to have access to that again, or get games of that style, because it feels like the kind of game that's been left to the past, that doesn't really exist anymore. And I have a paranoia sometimes when designers of games that made games I loved 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, when they come back and they're doing something new, I find myself wondering, is this really what I need? Are they going to be stuck in their old ways? Are they really not going to bring the game forward in any way that I would need? And I think the classic example of this for me is Tim Schafer, I don't know what you say in American English, but he was involved, I was just double checking now, in pardon me, Day of the Tentacle, Grim Fandango, Monkey Island, and then he was leading a game called Massive Chalice in about 2015. I remember being really excited, thinking, oh, this could be great, and it was just kind of crap, and it was just such a letdown, you know? So I'm always a bit wary when the makers of these old beloved games come back, especially if they're staying in something sort of similar, or maybe I haven't heard from them much in between. I always wonder, how is this actually going to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I always have those reservations in my mind. The little kind of pessimist in me is always like, oh, they're continuing something I enjoyed. There's no way I will enjoy this one. Or, oh, somebody is going to make the spiritual successor to something I enjoyed. Yeah. Let's see how they ruin it. And I think it's just because in my experience, it's happened so much more that people miss the mark when they try to continue one of those like beloved series. And it comes down to money. People eventually just kind of make that shovelware where they're like, this is what people liked, let's just keep doing that. And it's like, well, no, people liked it the first time because it was new.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do something new. I don't want the same game again. I want a game that feels the same but is brand new. And if you're not going to put that effort in, then you're going to let me down. And I don't expect that with Space Venture. I have a cautious optimism about that, but it's a possibility.
Well, yeah, but that's like when XCOM was remade back in 2012 or so. I was very cautious about it because it was the name of a game that I had really loved as a kid. I was waiting to see it come back. And then when they actually do announce that it's being remade, there's that real moment of, oh no, don't do this. Not like this. And then it turned out to be fantastic. But I think that also had the murmurings for a few years that they were remaking XCOM as a third-person shooter, which did get made eventually, for anyone curious. XCOM the Bureau, it's terrible. These games that you think you want the back, and you're not always sure. But that's an interesting one for me because XCOM, oddly enough, it was rebooted with a different designer. It was Jake Solomon instead of Julian Gollop. Hold on.
Neither of us are going to correct you.
The Google will. Julian Gollop. Yeah. So it became Jake Solomon instead of Julian Gollop. But then Julian Gollop, who was the designer of the original XCOM, did his own XCOM style game in 2019, Phoenix Point. And it's just not as good. It's fine.
I played Phoenix Point.
Yeah.
It was free on some subscription I had, which
where it belongs.
Probably tells you how well it did.
Yeah. And it's fine. It's not a bad game. But it's just this fella, he made an incredible game back in 1994, or whatever it was. But for whatever reason, just his design sensibilities, the choices he made back in 2019, they didn't carry over in the way that Jake Solomon's choices did in that XCOM of 2012, 2016. And I think it's one of those rare examples, Jake Solomon's XCOM, where putting a game in the hands of a fan was actually a good idea. Normally, fans, we're not the people who should be taking the next steps with games. We don't really know what we want. In this case, he did. He did very, very well. Sorry, Legion, I think I cut you off a few minutes ago when you were going to start talking.
No, I just said Gollum.
Oh, you're being a turd. Okay.
It was cutting him off was the correct move.
Yeah, I feel less guilt now.
I definitely had that same reticence, and we've talked about this before, when Baldur's Gate 3 was announced, because we were talking about that, a new developer taking over an intellectual property of a beloved series for me and Legion. My expectation was, oh, they're going to ruin it. We're going to get cheap crap, and they're going to kill this series, so we'll never get another game in it. And then it was incredible. And that is very much the outlier. That is the uncommon ending for those games, and I'm ecstatic that it happened with Baldur's Gate 3 in that way. But it won't change my mind. I won't come to believe that every time is going to have that potential. I'm going to see the negative side of it.
Yeah, and I think Baldur's Gate 3 especially, because the makers of Divinity 1 and 2, Original Sin 1 and 2, they have such a distinct style of game making that when I saw Baldur's Gate 3 for the very first time, and I thought, this does look a lot like Divinity 1 and 2, which are incredible games, but there was this worry that it might lose some sense of its identity and become seen as almost Divinity Original Sin 3. And it was quite refreshing to hear that it didn't really turn out that way.
Yeah, and hey, we just got that trailer for the new Divinity game, and they're saying it's much bigger than Baldur's Gate's production was. And my concern when I saw that was like, you might be overestimating Larian's positioning with gamers now. I think just Wizards of the Coast recognized that they were the proper developer to pursue Baldur's Gate 3 in that format. And they had the vision, not necessarily Larian directly initially. So I'm concerned about this next one, is what I'm saying. It could be a great game. I just don't know if it'll sell maybe the way they're thinking. But who knows? Who knows?
Well, I feel as though developers nowadays aren't really the thing that people look at. I don't know if it ever really was, but to some degree, there was a good portion of the gaming community that thought, ooh, new BioWare game. Ooh, new Bullfrog game. Bullfrog, I can always remember. That was exciting when they brought a game out. New for Axis game, whatever. I don't think we do that quite as much in the modern day. Maybe it's a side effect of how many games come out, how easy they are to play. The fact that we don't pick up a box might make a difference, because it used to say on the box, you pick up your physical box and it was in the corner, the Bullfrog logo or whatever. You can really easily go on Steam, buy a game and never notice who made it, unless you happen to look at that little bit of text that says developer down in the corner. I bet it's really easy to ignore that. So yeah, I'm kind of with you on this. I'm sure it'll do really well. I really am.
Yeah, if I saw a box that said that micropose,
yeah,
I knew that it was probably good, solid, not buggy, not super buggy. I remember that. And sometimes, we get a spiritual successor that isn't intended to be as such, but it kind of gets developed that way. And the one that came to my mind is Gothic. Gothic, was amongst gamers who played it, love it. That continue to play it even now. They're like, man, this was like a little hidden gem. And so there's not like a ton of people who play it, right? It's a struggle bus for sure. But the people who do love playing that, love that style of game. It's punishing. It's a slow grind. The old kind of like old Diablo way of doing it. Just like it gets going, but once it's going, it feels good. But there was a game that came out recently called Of Ash and Steel, and I played that one, and it was that very Gothic style, but not janky like Gothic is. Gothic is super janky. The hitbox is horrible. I mean, it's a struggle bus for sure. But Of Ash and Steel takes a lot of those game elements from Gothic that a lot of people love, and it actually makes it work. But it's not easy. I mean, I swear, I got in there, I was doing my thing, I was doing those little RPG mechanics, I went fishing for a little bit. It's like, I'm going to go out to the wild, I've got my little level 1 stuff, I'm going to be good. Arrow right in my head, died right as soon as I left the porch. I mean, what the hell? But that's the kind of game.
Don't worry, Com, I got this one. Actually, they're releasing a remake of Gothic 1 in Q1 2026.
But I'm saying from a spiritual successor, that's a direct sequel, direct remaster. I'm saying like I would say Of Ash
more spiritually in line than the exact same game.
I don't know, because like I said, if you take that same game and then just simply make it playable for now, I don't necessarily know like that's what we want. We want something that's playable. It's actually like in the same spirit of it. Like you mentioned before, we don't want the same game just reproduced for us. We want something that kind of takes it to that next level. So that's why I said spiritual successor, but it's just my 2 cents. The guy for Inscription, a lot of times people don't remember, he actually got famous for his Pony Island, and Pony Island is nothing like Inscription. But it is kind of a spiritual successor, because the game itself is such an evolution of things that happen. It's not just like, here's like Inscription, here's a card game. It becomes something much more than that. So he's coming out with Pony Island 2. We're going to see where that goes, but it's so wild. It's just his way of making games is just, it really forces you to interact with it. And then you become like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. He does that every time. He's just a genius when it comes to that. So we'll see.
Never heard of this game, looking at it now.
Pony Island.
It's currently 74 cents on Steam.
Oh, I've got $1 of Steam credit.
What will you do with that remaining 26 cents?
Oh, hold on. I got €1.17 actually.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, let's go.
43 extra cents.
Oh.
Actually, I have no idea what the conversion is to euros on the price of the game. So.
Yeah, well, I buy in euros too. 74 cents game and 74 cents for you too, right?
Yeah.
We're getting ripped the fuck off.
Yeah. Get wrecked.
Oh, yo, I get the soundtrack too for 14 cents more. I totally want that. No, I don't.
The soundtrack of a game you knew nothing about 40 seconds ago.
My cyberpunk reference of the Eurodollars tells me the conversion should be.
It is what Steam seems to base theirs on. Rex. Where was I? Oh, shit, I did have one to talk about and I've just forgotten it. Oh, it was going to be a game that I want to see a spiritual successor to, but I don't think I know of one. And it's the Banner Saga. I don't know if any of you played this when it came out, but it was a very peculiar turn-based battler in just vaguely Norse mythology, right? I don't think it was meant to be anything in particular. But I really liked their approach to turn-based combat. It was something that felt very different, felt very unique. I love how character-driven the story was. And I remember really enjoying the Banner Saga 1, losing interest with 2, and I think 3 I never even purchased. But I thought the foundation was there to make a really, really cool series of games, so I would have loved to have seen a spiritual successor to the Banner Saga.
I definitely remember going through that same experience with the Banner Saga games, where I really enjoyed Banner Saga 1, and then I played Banner Saga 2, and I was just like, yeah, I've had enough. And then never even looked at Banner Saga 3.
I think it's amazing how often that can happen with games. I think we have a tendency in gaming, it's the same in film as well, where when we see a success, we want to sort of piggyback on the coattails of that success, and we want to make a second game, a third game, we want to make an off-spin or whatever it might be. And a lot of the time, we just don't know when to say enough is enough. And a lot of games, they work really well as a one-off experience, and we don't really need any more than that. But we are, by our very natures, greedy. We are, by our very natures, keen to sort of follow this pattern of success. And it's such a shame when we do. Because I'd love to look back at the Banner Saga as this one really cool game that I played that one time and had a great time with. But instead, when I think about it, it's that game where I really enjoyed the first one and then just didn't really bother anymore.
Yeah, and I think that ties back into that conversation we were having about the overall evolution of developers, where previously you would see a developer on the box and think like, oh, it's another one of their games, I'll have to check it out. And I think there was definitely an era where that was the case. I remember doing that with Square. I remember doing that with Sierra. There was a big period with Ubisoft where I thought like, oh, I'll have to check this out because they were doing really incredible things. And now Square has done a lot of stuff that isn't lower quality necessarily, just doesn't suit me anymore. Ubisoft has done a lot of crap. Blizzard has gone the same way, where I just don't get excited when I see new Blizzard products, because I'm sure the world is super imaginative, but I'm also very confident that the gameplay is going to be structured in a way that they're trying to milk money out of me. So I think we've seen that trend with developers where they latch on to a money-making idea and they try to squeeze every last cent they possibly can until you hate the games you used to love.
It's these studios, they were always quite big. I mean, Ubisoft, if you go back, they always had different studios and subsidiaries. Like, go back into the 90s, they already had these. But you do feel like they expand so much, and you see all their modern offices popping up. And I was just having a quick look now at the Ubisoft offices that have existed since the sort of early 2000s, since around that time, and you see the opening, all after 2015, of Ubisoft Belgrade, Ubisoft Berlin, Ubisoft Bordeaux, Ubisoft Da Nang, Ubisoft Odessa. All of these studios that then go on, and they tend to work independently to make their games, so they'll have an expertise where one studio maybe is working on strategy and one works on simulations, whatever it might be. And you end up with this massive range of games all coming out under this sort of parent company. So you don't even know what the identity of that studio is supposed to be anymore. And you could say, I guess, that Ubisoft Montreal has an identity, Ubisoft Montpellier has an identity, Ubisoft, I pick one at random, Berlin probably has an identity. But people aren't looking at it that way, or the average consumer isn't. At best, we're just going to see, it's Ubisoft. And that's it. But the potential quality is going to be hugely different. The style of games it makes is going to be hugely different. Most of us probably aren't even going to notice anyway. And I wonder if that's just the natural transition now of these studios becoming bigger and bigger, of them having more and more subsidiaries, of the fact that storefronts don't really put front and center what studio it is. Now we attach ourselves more to individual IPs. So studios have more inclination, they've got more of a natural tendency now to push sequels to IPs, because that's the name we're going to recognize. You're not picking up the box and saying, ooh, Ubisoft, or ooh, Sierra. You're picking it up and going, ooh, Assassin's Creed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I think we'll probably start to see the same issue pop up in that we probably already have, where people will drain an IP until people hate it, and then, oh, now we have to come up with something new. And I don't know what we're gonna get when we get to that point, because that conclusion is what they should be coming to now, is, oh, we need to do something new. But they seem so adverse to actually admitting that when we get to that point where there's nothing else to conclude, I imagine they're just going to make up something else and try that instead of just making something new. But that's the pessimist in me.
You know, I told Banana when you mentioned that Banner Lords for the Norse stuff about a game. There's a game called Norse Oath of Blood, and I think it still has a demo, but it's interesting because it adds some RPG mechanics to the turn-based Viking stuff. And it's really neat because you can, at certain sequences, you can say, okay, we want the village to do defense, or we want to improve the leather working place or whatever. So that way, when you go out on, whatever, battles, combat, you're more equipped. And then you have to pick and choose. It's not like you upgrade everybody at one time. You have to choose, okay, so this item that we made, we're going to give it to Sven or whoever. And it's real individualistic. You can micromanage that. But I think there's a demo right now. I don't think it comes out till next year. But you had mentioned that one. I was like, there actually is a Viking turn-based one that looked really good. It has a lot of RPG mechanics too. So, Mass Effect, there's a couple of games that a lot of people have been referring to as potentially having some spiritual successors, and for good reason, because actually a lot of former devs from BioWare are working on them. One of them is The Expanse, and I know Maffey is really looking forward to that one. To me, I like it. It looks interesting. I don't know too much about it. The director for it recently retired, and so I actually asked Maffey, like, what do you know about that? And she says, actually, he retired, but he left it in capable hands, people that have already been working on a similar thing before, so they already know what to do. They're good. But there's also the what did I say? Did I say The Expanse? I said The Expanse. Exodus, that's the one that was referring to. Sorry, that was my mistake. I think it's Exodus that actually that's referring to. The Expanse is based on the series, the TV series, and that one also actually looks really good. But that to me looks more like Mass Effect, because it's kind of like the over the shoulder type thing. It's squad mechanics. It's very clearly a that style game. Exodus looks more like Andromeda, believe it or not. Yeah, it actually seems like if they had called it
everyone's favorite.
Yeah, if they had called it Andromeda 2, I'd have been like, but see, it looked like the Andromeda we wanted, like the one we were kind of expecting. So, and it looks pretty neat. And so I'm looking forward to both of them, actually. So if they both fit the bill, I mean, I'm all for it,
I just want to take a moment. In the last 15 minutes, you've got the names of 3 different games wrong.
Yeah, that's not it.
You picked up on the Bannerlord one as well, right?
Yeah, it's so entertaining, because you called Divinity Original Sin Divine Divinity. Which you also did when we were talking about it with Maffey. And then you called Banner Saga Bannerlords. And then with
Exodus,
The Expanse. Yeah. Oh.
At least they didn't call it Manor Lords. Manor Lords is another game entirely. So.
Oh, there's time. There's plenty of time.
It's so great that this is a gaming podcast and we just It's completely established. We have no idea what we're talking about.
I've done it in the past, and I've done it in the future. I'll do it in the future. Sometimes also the whole like it seems like Bethesda when they come out, like, obviously with Morrowind and then Oblivion and then Skyrim, it's like they're all spiritual successors to each other, but then nobody ever can really make that real high quality game. That we could say this seems like a replacement for my Skyrim need for the moment, and nobody's ever really made that, and it's kind of been noted. There is a game that's, I don't know if it's ever going to be coming out in 2026, maybe even 2027 maybe, but it's called Avernahorn, but it looks really, really, really good. You do have to they took some physics from Swordsman and said, hey, look, let's put that into the game, so that actually you have a progression that looks realistic. And it's definitely to me, I've never really cared for the chest point of view from in Skyrim. If I get them, if sometimes I've looked at those mods that try to at least raise it up a little bit, but this one seems to be, it's a little bit more, I think it is over the shoulder, but it looks really good. It looks really tight, and it definitely has that world that looks lived in and real. It's definitely not like The Witcher. It's a little bit more on the Skyrim side of things. And so, who knows? Maybe that'll be a nice little fill in for that type of, while we wait for Elder Scrolls 6.
When you described the game and you said its name, I took the chance to Google it and see if that actually was the name. So congratulations, you did get it right, Avernahorn. It actually looks very cool. That camera issue is something that I never really noticed ever when gaming until people started talking about it to me. Now I find it hard not to notice. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, but I do find my attention being drawn to it. I have the same kind of issue I have with that with 30 FPS. It's the kind of thing that if my game is 30 FPS, I don't notice, I don't care, until someone draws my attention to it, at which point it suddenly becomes a complete game-breaking problem.
I think just getting back to the idea of spiritual successors we would like to see. It would be a difficult one, I think, to continue, but I'd love to see more in the style of what became of Edith Finch. I think it probably is that lightning in a bottle where that game did something new and did it so well that attempting to continue that is going to feel off somehow. But I really enjoyed that story. I really enjoyed the way it was told and the way you kind of navigated through that game. It kept you engaged, and it was a different kind of game at the time. So I would appreciate seeing more of that. And that's one I think I've seen a lot of games try to mimic the style, but they all feel a little off to me.
Excuse me. It's one of those games where I think it came out at just the right time, and there were a bunch of not similar games in terms of the result, but they took a fairly similar approach in the walking simulator. So we had what became of Edith Finch, Everybody Goes to the Rapture, Firewatch, Gone Home, and they all sort of dropped together, or it felt like within maybe a 1, 2, 3 year period, that I wondered if we just got a bit burnt out on them. Because they're not the most interesting of games unless they're incredibly well written, which those all were, now that I think about it, which is probably why they're the ones we remember. But those kind of games,
that's probably what it is.
Yeah, if they're not incredibly well done, there's not much going for them. It's in the same way that, let's say Death Stranding. I love that game, but if the traversal wasn't interesting, there'd be so much ground to make up that there's almost no game in there left, even if the other bits are done really well. In games like what became of Edith Finch, which is so narrative driven, if the story isn't interesting, well, there's almost no game to play except for that. You're just in a very, very boring first-person walking simulator. So I think it's it's the kind of game that's very hard to make. It's the kind of game that we had a saturation of at one point. Maybe we're just not quite ready for it yet.
I think now that you've explained it, it's very clear that what I want is just a really good story. And that's it. Like, that's that's when you boil it down, that's what became Aviva Finch. That's all it did, was a great story told well. And that's what I want. And it's not even the style of the game. I just want another really good story like that.
Yep. Well, I can give you a set of spiritual successors that I would like, actually. And I was thinking about it all through the conversation, trying to think, like, well, have these games had spiritual successors? And the answer is kind of yes and kind of not. But I want spiritual successors to basically all of the Final Fantasies post Final Fantasy VII, and including, just because they're all so different to each other. And there's always that evolution of the system from one game to another. So 7, I guess we do have the spiritual successor in that we have the remake series. Okay, fine. 8, I would argue that Clair Obscur has a lot of debt to pay to Final Fantasy VIII, so we've got that now. 10, I don't know if we've really got a real successor to 10 yet. I'd be willing to be corrected, but I don't think we have. I see a lot of it in Persona, but I think Persona does enough of its own stuff that doesn't really feel like a successor. But I would love to see a successor to 12 and 13. Just those battle styles were so interesting and so different. And Final Fantasy did what it always does. It moved on. It stopped making those. As soon as that game series was done, we don't do that style anymore. We do something different. I'd love to see 13 a successor to that.
I like that you just skipped over the one that I think is the most deserving.
I haven't finished 9.
Oh, it's such a great game. It's one of those things where it's not my favorite. I will always have those kind of nostalgic biases that push other games above it. But I think in terms of quality for that era, I think it is overall better than 7 as just a quality game. But 7 will always have my heart. But I think 9 is definitely one of those games that deserves some recognition, some kind of spiritual successor, some remake, and not a remaster, a remake. Something that kind of reinvigorates that appreciation of Final Fantasy 9.
And that's one of the things we can agree on is the series, because they were always different to each other. There's merits in pretty much all of them for things we'd like to see redone. I mean, even 11 kind of already got it when 14 came out, you know. But these other ones, 13, 12, 10, 9, they've been a bit left behind, and it might be nice to see some of those mechanics brought back. Yeah, but I think for me, really, 12 and 13, they're the ones I'd like to see get successors, just because of how kind of cool the combat systems were. I love the idea of the gambits in 12 in particular, and that, I don't know how to describe 13's, that sort of clustered together ATB system, semi-automated. It was pretty cool. I'd love to see more of that.
Oddly enough, one of the ones that I really, really enjoyed the combat in is one of my least favorite Final Fantasy games, and I would love to see them bring that combat into a new game, and it's Final Fantasy X-2.
Fucking knew it! Yes! I was waiting for it. Yes!
The dynamic class changing in the middle of combat was such an interesting take on kind of dynamic turn-based combat, and it made for a much more interesting game. It was just a lot of the stuff around the combat that outside of that I didn't enjoy as much, but like you were saying, like, my least favorite Final Fantasy game is a Final Fantasy game, so there's something great about it. It just happens to be my least favorite. And I would love to see them take inspiration from the combat system in Final Fantasy X-2 and integrate that into something more modern. Like, if we saw some way of kind of reconfiguring a character in Claire the way that you could in Final Fantasy X-2, that would have been really exciting to me. Claire just happened to not need it. It was an excellent game without that feature.
You can almost do that with what's his name, the foot guy. Monaco, yeah. Nice. Yeah, you just kind of like bring in, a different set of attributes for, when you bring him out. I just did that video for the Fate of the Old Republic, and it's calling itself a spiritual successor to Knights of the Old Republic. But I'm a little I'm a little leery about that, only because I believe them. But SWTOR, the MMO, was advertised as a spiritual successor to Knights of the Old Republic, and it's really nothing like it. It's a different time period, different story, different everything. It's a different format, but that's just how it's advertised. So you never really know. I mean, it could be like they're taking the full definition of the spiritual side of it. It's in the same idea, the same concept, but yeah.
That's often what spiritual ends up being, isn't it? It's such a broad term that you have no idea what it's really going to be. It might be that it feels kind of similar. It might be that it shares a title. It might be that it's directly inspired by. It might be sometimes that they've just got the same writers or something similar. There's so many possibilities to the word spiritual. It's why we use it.
Yeah. I think that might be something of value for us to kind of describe here, is what spiritual successor to us actually means. Because when you see something like SWTOR being the spiritual successor to KOTOR, and you're just like, no, it's just the same IP. It's not the spiritual successor, it's just the next game.
The acronyms rhyme.
It's the successor. It's just the successor.
Yeah, for me, it would be any and all of the above that I mentioned previously. Like, when I'm saying spiritual successor, it really is this enormous, broad swathe where both XCOM Remake 2012 and XCOM the shooter, and let me add a third one on, and Phoenix Point are all spiritual successors to the original XCOM, even though those three games have pretty little in common with each other in the end.
BioWare seems to do this a lot, because even with Dragon Age, when it came out, it was advertised to be the spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate. And I didn't feel that at all. Like, where's my Baldur's Gate? I was promised a Baldur's Gate. And it's a great game on its own. But when I played it, and I had already played Baldur's Gate to death, the original ones, I was like, this is not a spiritual successor. So it really, sometimes it has to do with the advertising of it, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a bit worried, honestly. When we talk about, and I've forgotten the name now because Legion's messed me up. It's not
it's contagious.
It's not the Hey, what's it called?
Exodus?
Is it called Exodus?
Which one? There's Expanse and then there's Exodus, yeah.
Which is the one that, yeah,
it's not Expanse.
Yeah. I am concerned for Exodus that they are leaning so much into it's Mass Effect, but not. When you look at the art that they produced, which has so much in common with the Mass Effect feel. When you look at how much we talk about the presence of Drew Karpyshyn, I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce his last name, it feels as though they want to lean into that history and heritage that they have. Nothing sets us up more for disappointment. I think it is definitely a way to get eyes on your product, but it's not a way to make us fall in love with you unless you really knock it out of the park. Mm-hmm. So I'm a bit concerned for how I feel like they might be setting themselves up for failure.
Yeah, I think that's one of the issues with the term spiritual successor, because in my mind, a spiritual successor is a game that takes the quality aspects of a previous IP and integrates those into its goals. So you can have a spiritual successor that's in a completely different genre if you're taking inspiration from a previous game on how you want your game mechanics to work. But we so often see the phrase spiritual successor as a marketing tactic to say, hey, you liked that game? Buy our game. It's like that. But they won't tell you in what way it's like that. It's just the spiritual successor. Trust us, you'll feel like you didn't waste your money.
Yeah. Now, I really hope the Expanse and Exodus do really well. I think
Gotta say both of them to cover your bases.
Yeah. But I think for me, the Expanse might be closer to that definition. even though it's based on an IP that's totally separate and it's its own series that has its own lore. The way that they're doing the mechanics, though, it really does have that Mass Effect feel. So I'm looking forward to that. Both of them, actually, but really that one. If I put it a dart, if I have a dart in it, if a target, that's the one I'm thinking might hit the mark. We'll see.
I had to put a dart in the episode.
Put a dart in you.
Please.
Keep using that like it's common phrase that means something.
It is now.
Nope. Still not.
That is how language works, though. Given enough time.
But not if there's two of you doing it.
We
Yeah.
started the trend. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't follow
go
the trend.
viral.
Yeah, we don't follow trends. We start them.
Put it in the comments, please.
Well, if there's any game that you think is a proper spiritual successor that we didn't cover, please put it in the comments. There's one that we completely messed up and didn't get right in your opinion, put it in the comments, of course. Like the episode if you like it, and subs are always free on YouTube, and always appreciate any new subs that we get. We respond to every comment too, so again, just even if it's a comment just to say, hey, look, you guys could do much better, which we know. We already know. But put that in the comments. We'd appreciate any feedback. Anyway, we will check you guys later. Bye-bye.